Hi everyone, it's Zara Altair with Actation Now, and this is the Midweek Zap, and we are experiencing multiple technical difficulties on both sides, so be patient with us today. My guest today is David Kutcher, and I am so thrilled. I'm just thrilled. I love what David has to say, and so I hope you Zapsters are ready to take some notes. So David, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name's David Kutcher. I'm the co-owner of Confluent Forms. We're a web design, web development firm located in Western Massachusetts, but we have clients just about everywhere in the U.S. and some abroad. And been doing this. We've been incorporated since January of 2002. So I've been doing this for quite a while as the co-owner, but also professionally doing this since about 1997, 1998. So been in the industry a long time and worn quite a few hats during that time, making it very interesting. It's always an adventure.
It's like we're having an adventure today, David.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm freezing. You're freezing. I can't tell if this thing is still on. So yes, we're gonna have fun today. And if we're talking into the middle of nowhere, that's gonna be hopefully someone records it somewhere. So yes.
Okay, I want you to start out with your first premise so we can gather some questions from the audience.
My first premise. Okay, so I am of the firm belief that most people that I've run across on social media are essentially doing it wrong. But I'm going to back up and say that if you're not using social media and your websites to make money, honestly, you can leave this hangout on air right now. There's no point in you being here. And in fact, I actually don't want you thinking about these things. So if you're not using it for money or monetary reasons, just walk away right now. Close it, go outside, enjoy the day. But if you are using it to make money, then I want you to forget everything that you've been reading about content marketing, influence marketing, relationship marketing, pinning it for later, 80-20 rules, 90-10 rules, being authentic, branded Canva graphics, being a good curator of content, 10 ways to improve. Well, you get the point already. I mean, you've read that stuff. I mean,
my favorites are the 41 ways to, and I'm like, who is going to remember all this stuff?
Well, it's 41 ways because you have to make it an odd number, and it works even better.
Oh no, everyone, we lost him. He has the link to rejoin, so let's hope that we get David back. Randy Randy says, is that a dare? And yes, it is. So I'm going to leave this up because David's back. David, Randy wants to know, was that a dare?
Was which part a dare?
Oh, there you go. I think it was the whole thing.
Well, I look at all those things and I go, it's great that you have all of these tactics, all of these little things, but you know what? People are wasting their time because they haven't started with what I consider the first thing that they need to do. And that first thing they need to do is create an audience development strategy. And most people that I've talked to on social media, most website owners that I've talked to that have become clients of mine, haven't started at that one basic step of defining their audience. And by defining their audience, I mean they actually haven't gone and listed out who it is that they're trying to reach. How do you even start being active on social media if you don't know who you're trying to reach? You don't know who your potential clients are, your potential customers, nor how you should be speaking to them. So an audience development strategy is that one piece that I feel everyone is missing, or most people are missing. Sorry, not everyone, because Randy's a smart cat, but most people are missing. And if they haven't done that yet, then most of their time is being wasted. So if you want, I can go and start defining what an audience development strategy is.
Yeah, go right on ahead. We're all ready.
All right. So when I first sit down with a client, that hasn't done this exercise, what I get them to do is define the unique types of users that they're engaging with, including the ones that they're trying to reach and who is trying to reach you. For each one of those, define each one of those unique types of users' individual needs and goals. Beyond that, define how you can fulfill all of their needs and goals. So breaking it down level by level, defining how each of these types are looking to find resolution for their troubles, and as well as how best you can reach them to help them achieve those resolutions. It's basically this whole matrix of intersecting needs and your ability to reach them. And for each type of user, you're going to reach them in a different way. You're going to write content for them in a different way. You're going to speak to them in a different way. You're going to find them in different places. Because if you haven't done that, then why are you going to be on Pinterest pinning these things if your potential customers aren't there? You're just wasting your time and effort. Why are you posting on Google Plus if your potential customers don't use Google Plus? Why are you focusing on Google local search if your potential customers aren't local to you? That's the challenge, is that people haven't done that first step of defining what their target audience is, what their needs are, and how they can be reached.
I think too, it comes down to going where they are, because everyone who's here on the Hangout, for instance, has a presence on Google Plus and likes hanging out on Google Plus. If your target market that you have defined isn't hanging out on Google Plus, then why be here? You be here to have fun and learn things, but as far as reaching your market, I have someone who was a newbie to Google Plus last year, and she owns a brick and mortar business, and she's coming back for a 1-year report on what she's done with building her presence, on her online presence. She's coming back in June, her 1-year anniversary, but that she has recognized that most of her customers are not on Google Plus. So she's here and she interacts with people, and David is gone again. Thank you everyone for being so patient with us today. We have no idea. I want to thank William Rock for jumping in before the show and helping us. So thank you, William Rock, for doing that. We really appreciate that. Anyway, my point is that a lot of her success is attributed to really studying, recognizing, and using where her particular target market goes.
Yeah, well, I think that's symptomatic of it. You have to be where they're going, but you also want to be how they're looking for information.
Yes.
It's not necessarily where they are. It's if your type of user has a need or a challenge, how are they going about finding the answer to that? How are they going about getting that need fulfilled? It's not whether you're on Facebook or Google Plus or Twitter or anything else like that. It's from the simple fact of they have a problem. How are they going to go about solving that problem? And that might be they never go onto social media. It might be they go to the yellow pages. It might be that they ask their friends, and it has nothing to do with technology at all. It's how do you get to them and how do they get to you? Technology all aside. I was writing this up because I'm also writing a case study on this, but if we're talking about, let's say your local, using the example of your local, what's a good one I can come up with? Garden supply store. That's a good one.
Okay.
Local garden supply store. We have tons of different types of users that walk into a garden supply store, whether it's your first time homeowner that just bought a house and they're like, oh my goodness, I have to get a lawnmower, to a home gardener, to a professional farmer, to a professional landscaper, or what have you. they have all these different types of users, of potential customers that are going to be coming into their store and their location. And they have to know how to talk to each one of these different people in a different way. They have to be able to market to these people in their own unique way, whether it's, how to create your first organic garden in your backyard. You need to be able to speak to each of their individual needs in a different way with a different voice. You don't want to be talking down to a professional, nor talking up to a person who's never put their hand in the ground before. It's one of those things where you have to both find a voice and find a way of connecting to them. And that comes back to that audience part. It's not necessarily about where you are and going where they are, because they could be coming to you, but it's a matter of how you're speaking to them, how you're putting out content that relates to them, how you're able to answer their questions when they walk in the door, and what kind of voice to use, what kind of level of terminology to use. All of these things are part of your audience development strategy, because you'll have identified the level of user and how to best connect and speak with them. And then it becomes from there, how do I fulfill their specific needs and goals, and how do they relate to my needs and goals as a business? If they're coming in and they're saying, well, how do I plant my first garden? And you can say, oh, well, this is how you do it. These are all the things I can give you that I think are recommended for you, that I can put together in a package and sell to you. So I'm fulfilling my business needs, but also their needs as a beginner. And I can speak to those different levels of users because I've identified who they are. And I can create the content and the strategy for how I can best engage those different types of users at the most optimal way. Vincent Messina, he actually introduced me to another concept called buyer personas, which is I think it's a great play off of audience development strategy, because it speaks more towards the marketing side of it, which is how am I selling them and their buyers. But I like to think of it from the information architect perspective, which is where my roots lie, which is, how can I organize content? How can I organize the voice and the perspective and make it more, whether or not they're buying or not, how can I talk to them as a user? Because sometimes it's actually, you're not even marketing directly to the buyer, but someone in the middle, and you have to think about, okay, well, where are all these different types of voices that I need to connect with? And that's why, it comes before all of these things like the Pinterest pinning it and the 80-20 rules. It comes before that. These are the things that you need to document before you get to that point, because otherwise you have no basis for doing everything else.
I have some comments I want to insert here. First, we have, just for fun, we have Randy Milanovic. The go away part. Do you think anyone would dare to leave this HOA other than David himself, of course?
Hey, you know what? I'm sure at some level I bore people senseless.
Oh, I think
my wife, when I start talking about these things, she just zones right out. But other people are, it's, I hope I get wheels turning more than anything else. Anytime I post something online, all I want is it to stick in someone's head to get them thinking, and that goes towards my own audience strategy. My own audience development strategy is I want people to get thinking, and if they've started thinking about things, I've planted a seed in their brain that ties into my personal brand and my company's brand. I put out a case study recently about the work we did with Michelin Metals. And, it's how can I get the client thinking like I'm thinking? Because if I can do that, then that's the value proposition my company brings to the table. And it keeps us engaged and helps bring us clients. So, that's part of where I find our own voice is doing this type of engagement.
that was a fantastic study. I think I read that study 3 times because there's just a lot of information. And maybe after the show, you can post a link to that because it's
Definitely
very informative about your thinking and how you led a client through that thinking. So, but then Alex says, I'd argue for a lot of businesses, it goes back even further to their mission statements a lot of organizations aren't certain what their mission and brand values are. So what do you think of that?
Oh, no, those are all things that speak to and inform an audience development strategy. I mean, those are all parts that you pull off of. I mean, even your branding strategy gets pulled into this because it helps you set the tone. You know, what's your brand voice? What's your brand imagery? What's your mission? I mean, everything at some point, every business needs to have a mission statement, even though I know my company's even remiss in, mainly because sometimes it evolves over time and you just get carried away with where you are as opposed to going back and updating your mission statement. But yeah, it's all part of that. It's all part of the Oracle of Delphi of know thyself. You know, I mean, you have to kind of where you're coming from before you can even go outward into the world to start interacting and hoping to bring in clients and informing people and whatever. I mean, you have to know what you stand for and why, and that does inform everything else that you do. So yes, I think Alexandra's right. I mean, your mission statement should be that cornerstone of a lot of things. But I guess where we started was a little further down the line. Hopefully that your business has a mission statement, or at least the concepts, you know, the seed of a mission statement.
So, and then Marilyn Moore says, being on Google Plus has other benefits in building brand identity with Google, as well as tools such as Hangouts. So that's going back to the first part of our conversation. That's, some of the usefulnesses for Google Plus. And then,
but building brand identity is great, you know, but at the same time, you need to have a brand identity before you can build a brand identity within a social media platform. You know, what does your brand stand for? What is your brand voice? And it's only because you have identified that beforehand that you can bring that knowledge to Google Plus, to Facebook, to Twitter, to Instagram, to wherever, and have it be consistent across all platforms. You know, that's the challenge, is that having that definition first allows you to move from tool set to tool set because it's all consistent at that point. You know, you don't have a different voice on Twitter than you do on Google Plus. Google Plus allows you to bring a lot of that knowledge into Google so that Google has a better sense of it, and the network that you build on Google Plus has a sense of it. But it all comes down to your business having it on your website as well, having it in your marketing collateral that's printed, having it on your big sign that hangs in front of your store. You know, it has to be everywhere. And if it's not everywhere, and if it's not consistent, then you have a problem there.
I think consistency is very important because you never know how a potential customer or that other person that you mentioned is going to make that first connection with you. And then Sheila Hensley, just giving you a pat on the back here. Sheila says, you do make us think, David.
I'm very argumentative at my core, so yes.
And then one more from Randy. He says, Vincent Messina rocks. We share the same brain, split in two at birth. Knowing your buyer personas is the first step in any website project. Design only after you know who you are presenting to and what they are seeking.
Yeah, I mean, we've and Randy and Vince and I, we've had these conversations many times. We look at it from different angles because I think Randy and Vincent are more on the marketing angle, like I said, and I'm more from the information architect angle. Mm-hmm. So I look at it as sometimes, you know, you're not even selling anything. Sometimes you can have a pure information site, and it's really whether or not anything's being sold. It's how do you speak to those people, you know, and that's why I think sometimes the marketing concept of brand persona is a little limited in that sense. But it's all essentially the same thing. How do you take a type of user and walk them through fulfilling their needs? You know, why are they coming to wherever you are, and how are you fulfilling their needs? But at the same time, like I said, how are you fulfilling your needs in fulfilling their needs? And that's kind of where that matrix comes that I was talking about, referring to earlier, comes about. And it's an important thing to do because, especially with the information architecture, you know, you want to make it so that, oh, they read this great article. And, you know, I'm trying to bring this back to, you know, maybe a small blog example. You know, they read a great article. Now that they finished, well, what's the action item? Now that they've fulfilled their needs in gaining this insight that you provided them with, you need to fulfill your needs. So what are your needs? You can say, well, I want you to leave a comment or share this blog post or register for my newsletter, or God forbid, pick up the phone because I have a click to call button and call me and hire me based on this great case study you wrote, that you just read of mine. So it's both fulfilling their needs and fulfilling my needs. And that's where this mashup occurs, this intersection of I need to both fill their requirements, fill their needs, and fill my own. And that's how having this information, having this audience development strategy really does help you plan for everything, whether it's your website, your blog, or your social media activities. It helps you plan for everything and make sure that there's a reason for what you're doing. You're not just writing blog articles to write blog articles. You're writing blog articles to bring in and answer the questions of a specific person with a specific problem, answer them, and thereby sell them. It's point A to point B to point C.
Can you say that one more time? I think it's really key to your whole strategy.
Wow. I wish I could rewind that and go back to exactly what I said, because goodness gracious, I just go, freeform here. Revising it a little bit. I mean, when we plan out the information architecture, and I was just giving the case of a blog example. A person is coming for a specific need. They ended up at your blog article because something that you wrote either showed up in search to answer a search query, or they saw it on social media and they said, oh, that looks really interesting to me. I need to read it. They read it. They get to the end of it. But now that you've fulfilled their needs, you need to fulfill your own, which is to get them to do something for you, whether it's to share it, to comment, or to hire you. And that's where this comes about. This comes about in connecting their needs and your needs, and that intersection, and actually making something happen because of it. And if you're not, then you're just writing blog articles to write blog articles. You're just writing content that gets you vanity metrics. It's not actually accomplishing anything. It might be answering their questions, but it's not helping you any. So what's the point in doing it? You're just wasting your effort. Like I was saying in the beginning, you're just spinning your wheels, just putting out stuff on social media. Why are you curating content? Are you curating content because you're trying to curry social favor, or are you just putting out content? Or you could be curating content because at the end of the day, you're helping build an audience that actually values your insight. And that's where that difference comes about. It comes about through actually creating value for you as much as for the other person.
I think you can't emphasize that enough. And you're getting from Just In Case perfectly stated.
I don't know what I just perfectly stated, but spectacular.
No, I think it's the it's the something for them and something for you, and I think that is something that a lot of people miss. I call it kindergarten exercises. Make do, make work. We're going to fill in this time by writing a blog post, but the intentionality behind it is vague.
Yep.
And then also back to mission statements. Midweek says lots of mission statements are camouflaged intent statements to make money. Midweek, I love that. Many of them don't relate to clients because of this reason, until they can state clearly why they do what they do.
So very true. It's very true. And there's a lost art in writing mission statements. There really is. And the only ones I've actually found that are good at writing mission statements are nonprofit organizations, because it's the only way that they can actually conceptualize what it is that they're doing enough to raise money from donors. For businesses aren't so good at it, because most businesses are pretty crappy at conceptualizing what it is they're selling. They're selling widgets. At some level, we're all selling widgets. And how do we bring that to a higher level of concept to put into a mission statement that sounds like something other than I'm here selling widgets? That's the trouble in mission statements more often than not for businesses. It's hard to go beyond that, which is why it's, it evolves over time. I mean, my company, we add offerings, we subtract offerings. We had an initial course of action that we were going to undertake when we first incorporated. And that's changed over the last 13 years. So it's one of these things that I understand if you don't have a mission statement, you should at least know what you stand for, I guess. Know what your voice is.
Absolutely know what you stand for and what your business stands for. I mean, how is anybody else going to know if you don't know what you stand for?
Yeah, and there should be some overriding theme that ties all your activities together. Otherwise you're selling widgets over here and artwork over here. I mean, what brings those two things together is the concept. So there needs to be some kind of concept. How that relates is entirely up to you. I mean, sometimes you can add very disparate offerings, and in your head they make sense. To anyone else, probably not so much. But it's all how you justify it, I guess. But to some extent, it goes towards your voice. It goes towards how you want to put out the public face of yourself. So, yeah.
I think Randy has a comment about personae, I guess it would be, and I like this. He says, "I'm a fan of swapping buyer persona with visitor persona and influencer persona or something else. The label isn't as important as what David Kutcher is saying about creating content that resonates with your website visitor with the intent to help them become your customer."
Yep. Well, not necessarily your intent to make them a customer, because that gets back to the buyer, but your intent to make them something. What you want to do with that person at the end of the day is really up to you. Your intent to get something, whether that's a customer, whether that's to get a referral, whether that's to have them introduce you to someone that might become a customer. There's in the document I put up the imagery, there's an inter-user type that I believe in also. It's Zara, you might never become a direct client of mine, but you might refer me to other people. Absolutely. So how do I bring in people like you as well? Because I want to speak to you on some level, and you're one of my user types. You're a user type that I want to speak to because you help me get to the other type of user. So it's sometimes that the person doesn't become the user necessarily, or the buyer, but that it's a type of person that I've identified that I want to reach either as the end result or as a means to an end. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I see Randy published another great article, a great graphic that's very similar to mine in a different kind of way. But yeah, same kind of theme. How do we get there? And that's the thing, is that getting back to what I said right in the beginning of this, most people don't have a plan for how to get to anywhere. It's just spinning their wheels because they're seeing all these tactics that are telling them to do all these things, but with no idea of where they're going. No idea of who they're trying to reach or why. They're just trying to do a lot of activity.
Yeah, and I do call it kindergarten work, because it's just filling time. You could be just what David said at the beginning. You might as well go outside, enjoy the day, take your dog for a walk, go swimming, whatever, but if you don't have that intentionality, and you don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it, or who your audience is and what you're saying to that particular audience, it's as people see what you put out, whether it's on your website or on social media, they're getting a vague sense of who you are.
Yes, they're getting a vague sense of who you are. And not only that, but it's time wasting. It's effort wasting, it's money wasting, it's resource wasting. If you're a business that's on here that doesn't have a direction, you're just wasting money and time and effort. And if you're not in here for the money, then don't listen to any of these experts telling you how to do these things. Like I said, go outside, enjoy the day. Don't tell someone how to be, that you need to be authentic and follow these listicles if it's not business related. You should just be enjoying it and posting as you want to post. And if you are a business, have a plan, have a course of action, have some goals for yourself and a strategy for how you're going to reach your goals and reach all these audiences. I was recently working a bunch of 3 different clients actually through this exercise, and they said, "Oh, we've got 4 user types." I said right away, "No, you don't. If you only have 4 user types, you're not doing this enough. You need to break those down to about 20. I want situations. I want as much granularity as you can possibly put into this, because the more granular you get in cultivating this strategy documentation up front, the better that we can target them, the better we can understand intent, the better we can understand, how we can best fulfill their needs." And if you don't go to that granular level, then you're basically shortchanging yourself. You're cutting yourself off from better understanding who your primary customers are and how to reach your primary customers.
David, we're winding up. We have about 10 more minutes, 9 more minutes. And I was wondering, I want to bring in a couple of comments, and then I was wondering if you could take this just a little bit further and talk about how you use analytics and Webmaster tools to sort of track what's going on. So first, let's do a couple of comments because they're kind of fun.
Sure.
Just in case, back again, says, "Every job is a self-portrait of the one who did it. Autograph your work with excellence. Our widgets are freedom technologies." Thanks, Justin. And then Glenn Jewett says, "It's important to understand when you don't have an intersection and avoid investing time when the goal isn't defined."
It's true. And actually, that comment actually leads me to my next, so I guess the introduction into the Google Analytics part. Okay. So let's say, for example, that that you're writing certain content towards beginner users. Let's say, getting back to that idea of a garden store, and you're writing out a blog article because you're targeting that first organic home gardener. And you're talking about what you need to set up a basic garden. You write a blog post, a great blog post. You can understand that chances are, because you've identified in your audience strategy what type of user would be interested in that article, you can then give a better idea of what other articles to recommend to them, what products to recommend to them, what actions to recommend to them, and the voice to recommend them in. And if you start looking at that from the landing pages in Google Analytics, you know that the person coming into that page is a beginner newbie user. If you go to your Google Webmaster tools, you can now, in the search analytics part, you can actually sort it so that you can just identify, okay, well, I can limit the pages in that Google's new search analytics, and then I can see all the keyword phrases that ended up being searched for and showing that page, as well as clicked on and showing that page. So in this way, you can get a better sense of what people are looking for to end up at that page, as well as, once they're on that page, how successful are you at moving them through your funnel? Whether that funnel is to other related blog articles for that specific type of user, or moving them to your sales and capture pages. So in this way, you get a better idea of and a better understanding of those types of user personas that you've created, those types of audiences and their needs and what they're looking for. If someone says, my search is for how to do an organic tomato garden, that's a search query that brought to that beginner level page, and that's a beginner level user. Now, what do I sell them? And this is where you track it in your analytics, whether it's you're using your analytics set up for e-commerce, or your goal conversions for capturing a contact. So I'm trying not to get too much into the analytics and Webmaster tools, because it gets very detail oriented, and will probably tune out most people. But these are all types of things that you can look at pretty easily, if you know where to look and you know what questions to ask. One of my first articles, I guess, on analytics, or most popular actually, was my magic 8 ball approach. to analytics, which is simply about coming up with good questions. How do you come up with good questions to ask? And once you know what questions to ask, you can find the data in analytics, which is better than just pulling up analytics and going, well, where's the answers to my questions? Well, you haven't given it questions. You've just pulled up the data. So, it comes back to, like I said, these user types, but also with the 8-ball approach, coming up with good questions to ask. How well am I converting beginner gardeners who, first-time users? How well am I converting this audience type? And in analytics, you can go a step further, and you can do groupings of content based on groupings of content. I can't remember what they're called right now. It's not sticking in my head. But you can use audience segmentation to identify all of your beginner content. And then from there, how well am I converting my beginner content to the actions that I want them to take? So I know I just crammed a whole lot in there in one short fell
No,
swoop.
that was really fantastic. I have a pertinent question about that.
Go for it.
That is, are you still doing your David version of Helpouts?
I am.
All right, so I just want to suggest to everyone, if you want to go into more detail, you will not believe what a half hour of David will tell you.
Oh boy, a half hour. Even I stick to 15 minutes because at that point, everyone's head's about to explode.
Oh, okay. Well, 15 explosion, but it's just amazing what you will learn. So, if you have questions just about this topic and going into Webmaster and segmenting and doing all those things, I heartily recommend that you set up that 15 minutes of fame growing with David, because he's so knowledgeable and helpful.
Yep. I'm putting the link in right now, actually.
Bang on answers.
No, and you know what? It's 15 minutes give everyone enough homework and enough challenging things to do that gets you on your way. And that's the nice thing, is that it really is. I like to think that once you get started on Google Analytics and you start knowing, like I said, knowing what questions to ask, and I feel like I help people get started on the how do I create good questions to ask part. It puts you down a road of really getting insight and actionable intelligence from your Google Analytics. In that case study we were talking about earlier, I've made some of my clients complete addicts of Google Analytics, where in the beginning they're just like, I see visits, I see sessions, I see page views, I see bounce rates. It has no meaning to me. But now these same clients ping me 3 times a day and check in, every third day with analytics questions, because they're just finding so much good stuff there that they're tweaking and doing experiments and changes and continually optimizing their sites and getting more performance out of it because they've started asking questions. Asking questions is that first part of that rabbit hole of, now I'm completely addicted to my website. And that's the challenge, is getting them completely addicted to making improvements and getting more value out of their website.
Okay. David, I can't thank you enough for everything that you've shared with us today. And we are coming to the end of our time. Is there one last something you'd like to give everyone?
Honestly, I put up that graphic in the chat, and unfortunately I can't share it because every time I try to do something on here, it freezes up my browser window. Yeah. But go out and just make a list of all of your types of users. Sit down for a while with, graphing paper. Keep it next to you. Graphing paper is awesome. And literally make out a list of each of your audience types. And under each one of your different user types that you have, make a list of their needs and goals. Then make a list of how you can fulfill their needs and goals. Then how they find resolution for that. Like, what are they doing? Are they picking up their phone? Are they making a phone call? Are they searching Google? Are they going on social media? And then from there, how you can best reach them, how you can put yourself in front of them. If you can do those 4 things and break it down as much as you can, it's going to help you immensely in actually making your time spent on social media and the investment you're putting in your website that much better. Just go out and start there. So that's my final thoughts.
Oh, thank you so much. That was just a wonderful, wonderful time. And thank you for everything that you've offered today. I
My
want to
pleasure.
thank all the Zapsters who were here with your comments and questions. And I want to especially thank you for bearing with us through a multitude of technical difficulties today. I don't have my regular camera. David had popped in and out a couple of times. I think we're a little bit slow as well. So I want to thank you all for staying with us and hanging in with this crazy hangout. And then next week, I just want to give you a heads up that Glenn Jewett, who was here today, is going to be talking about sales and getting to the close and how you actually close the sale. So we'll see you next week. And thank you again, David. Thank you. Thank you
My
very much.
pleasure.
All right. Thanks, everyone.